Hey there everyone, Ramesh here, back again with another video. In this video we're going to learn how to build a simple full stack application using Vue JS as a front end and Spring Boot as a backend. Okay, so Vue JS is a popular JavaScript framework for building user interfaces. On the other hand, Spring Boot is a popular Java framework for building REST APIs and microservices. Alright, great. So look at here, this is a simple Vue Spring Boot full stack application architecture. This is basically a client server architecture. At the client side we have Vue application, and at the server side we have Spring Boot application. So basically Spring Boot application exposes the REST APIs, and at a database level we are using S2 in-memory database. So you can replace S2 database with MySQL database or PostgreSQL database, Oracle database, etc. So we are going to use Spring Data JPA, which internally uses Hibernate. So we can replace any relational database by just simply changing the database configuration in application.properties file. Okay, so you can use any database. Just make sure that you will provide JDBC URL, username and password in application.properties file in Spring Boot application. Okay, so in a Vue application we are going to use Axio's HTTP library to make a AJAX call or a REST API call. Okay, so pretty simple guys. So this tutorial demonstrates that basically how to integrate Vue application with Spring Boot application using Axio's HTTP library. So there are many HTTP libraries out there, but Axios is kind of a popular HTTP library. So we are going to use Axios HTTP library to make a AJAX call or REST API call in a Vue application. Okay, so this is simple, a client server architecture. Now let's take a look into what we'll build. So we are going to basically build two projects: Spring Boot backend and Vue frontend. Spring Boot backend project develop and expose the REST APIs, and Vue frontend application consumes the REST APIs. And you can see here this is screenshot. Okay, so Vue application basically call the REST API and get the response of the REST API and populate that response in a web page. So we are going to basically develop a very simple full stack application, guys, and I will plan for crude full stack series, but this tutorial just demonstrate that how to integrate your Vue application with Spring Boot. Let's take a look into prerequisites for this tutorial. You should have basic understanding of HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and you should have basic understanding of Vue JS and Spring Boot. So I'm not going to cover the basics, guys. I'm just going to demonstrate how to integrate Vue JS application with Spring Boot. I mean how to create a simple full stack application using Vue JS and Spring Boot. Alright, so make sure that you have basics, the basics of Vue JS and Spring Boot, and make sure that you have installed Node.js and npm, because we are going to use Node and npm to create a Vue application at a front end. Alright, so now without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump into IntelliJ IDEA, and let's first create a Spring Boot application and expose a simple REST API, and then later on we'll create a Vue JS application to consume the REST API. In order to create a Spring Boot application, we are going to use Spring Initializer. Well, go to the browser, in a new tab just type start.spring.io. So this will open Spring Initializer. Now in a project section we have Maven and Gradle project, so keep Maven project selected and keep language Java as a selected over here, and Spring Boot keep selected version, that is 2.5.3. so this is the latest version of Spring Boot and it is recommended by Spring Boot team. So let's keep 2.5.3. don't choose snapshot because they are not stable. And in a project metadata section we are going to fill up the project metadata details. So let's give group as net.java guides. So I'm going to give my website name, that is netjavagetz.net. So you can give any group ID that you want, and artifact ID I'm going to give a name as Spring Boot backend. Alright, a name is same as the project name. Description I'm going to give here something like Spring Boot backend project, something like that, backend application. And here I'm going to use package name as net.javagetz.springboot. Perfect. And choose packaging as a jar over here, and Java 16.11. So I'm going to use Java 16, which is the latest release of Java as of now. You can use either Java 11, Java 8 as a JDK installation in your machine. Okay, perfect. So go to add dependencies over here, and here we are going to choose the dependencies. So let's go ahead and let's use Spring Web Starter dependency. So we are going to build a REST APIs. So for that we are going to use Spring Web Starter dependency. Alright, and we are going to use S2 database. So go ahead and pick up S2 database dependency, and we are going to use Lombok library to reduce the boilerplate code. So go ahead and choose Lombok library over here. Okay, perfect. And we are going to use Spring Data JPA to connect to the database and perform different database operations. For that we are going to use Spring Data JPA Starter dependency. Okay, so these are the dependencies are enough to create a REST API which will talk with the database at a backend. Alright, now go ahead and click on generate. So this will generate Spring Boot application as a zip file. Now open this zip file in a folder and just extract it. Perfect. Now open IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, I have opened IntelliJ IDEA over here, and I am going to open an existing project in IntelliJ IDEA. So click on open over here, and then go to downloads. So my project has downloaded in a downloads folder, so I am going to choose a project from downloads folder. So here is a Spring Boot backend, and I am going to open this project in IntelliJ IDEA. Click on open. Alright, great. So look at here, this IntelliJ IDEA will take a couple of seconds to download all the dependencies from the internet, and it will set up the Spring Boot application in IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, let's wait a couple of seconds. Alright guys, we have successfully imported Spring Boot backend project in IntelliJ IDEA. Now what we'll do, we'll create one simple REST endpoint. Okay, so go ahead and expand our Spring Boot project and expand search folder and then main folder, and then go to main package. And here within a main package we are going to create one package. Let's call it as entity, and within entity package we are going to create a class. Let's name it as employee. Okay, so we are going to use simple employee entity here, and let's go ahead and let's add some fields to employee class. Private long ID, and then private string first name, and then private string last name, and then private string email. To keep it simple, I'm going to keep these 4 fields in an employee class. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's use Lombok annotations to create a getter setter methods automatically. So we're not going to generate getter setter methods and constructor for this employee class. In fact, we are going to use Lombok annotations. Okay, so we'll reduce the boilerplate code. Okay, so go ahead and let's use add getter annotation to generate a getter methods for these private fields, and we are going to also use add setter Lombok annotation to generate a setter methods for these private fields, and we are going to also use no argument constructor to create a no argument constructor for this class, and also all argument constructor. And I use a builder pattern basically to create object of the classes. So I prefer using builder pattern, because if class has a lot of fields, then we need to create a lot many constructor. To avoid that, I usually prepare using builder pattern. So I use builder annotation here. Okay, now we have created a simple class. Now we are going to use JP annotation to map our class to relational database table. For that, we are going to use add entity annotation to make this class as a JP entity, and also we are going to use add table annotation to provide a table name for this entity. Let's give a table name as employees, and we are going to define the primary key by using @id annotation over here, and we are going to also provide primary key ID generation strategy. For that, we are going to use @generated_value annotation over here, and it has a strategy attribute, and here just pass identity as primary key generation strategy. Perfect. Now we are going to use @column annotation to provide a column details for this field. It has a name attribute, and we are going to use column name here as first_name. You can also specify not null property for this column. For example, null label equal to false. So this will basically add a null label not null attribute for this column. Okay, so similarly we are going to use @column annotation to provide a column name for last name. Okay, name equals to last_name. All right, and if you don't specify @column annotation, then JP is not enough to give a column name as the field name. So typically we represent a column name something like this. If there are two words in a single word, then we typically use underscore in a column name, right? For that, I have just used @column annotation to give a column name for this field. Okay, and here email sounds good as a column name, so I don't add @column annotation. Okay, great. Now save the file. Now it's time to create a repository to store and access the employee data in the database. For that, we are going to create a separate package for that. So right click new and then choose package and just give package name as a repository. Hit enter and right click on repository package, new, and then choose Java class and choose interface here, and let's give interface name as employee repository. Hit enter and go ahead and extend this interface from JPA repository interface. Okay, and for JPA repository interface we are going to pass two arguments. First argument is type of the entity and second argument is type of the primary key. Okay, perfect. So JPA repository basically provides us a CRUD methods to perform CRUD operations on the employee entity. Okay, great. So that's it. I mean, we don't have to write any code to interact with the database. I mean, to save the employee, to get the employee, okay, to delete the employee, update the employee. So JPA repository will provide all the methods to perform all the CRUD operations with database on employee entity. Okay, great. Now let's go and let's create a package and let's create a controller within that package and simply develop one REST API. So right click on main package here, new, and then choose package and give package name as controller. Now within a controller we are going to create a class. Let's give class name as employee controller and hit enter, and let's annotate this controller class with add REST controller annotation. So once we add this annotation to this class, then this class acts as a Spring MVC REST controller and which will capable to handle a web request. Okay, now we'll add one more annotation, that is add request mapping annotation, and we define a base path here, that is /API. Alright, and here we are going to auto hire employee repository because we are going to use employee repository methods, right? And let's use add auto hire annotation here. Perfect, right? Now let's go ahead and let's create a method public list. So this method is going to return a list of employees, so list, and then pass employee as a type, and then just give a method name as fetch employees. Okay, very simple. And let's annotate this method with @get mapping annotation so that this method will handle a get request, and just define the REST URI path here, that is employees. Perfect. Now this REST API should return a list of employees, right? Just call employee repository object and then find all method. So look at here, find all method returns a list of employees. Okay, go ahead and call find all method. That's it guys, very simple REST API. Alright, we have created a simple REST API and we have exposed this REST API from our Spring Boot backend application, right? Now we need some records in a database table. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll write some logic to save few records in a database table, so that whenever our React application will use this REST API, this REST API will basically return all the employees from the database table. Alright, great. So basically we don't have to configure anything in application.properties file, because Spring Boot will automatically configure S2 database data source. Okay, Spring Boot will automatically configure a data source for S2 database, so we don't have to configure any URL, username and password in application.properties file. Okay, great. Now go to application class, and here we are going to write the logic to insert few records in a database table. For that we are going to use command line runner. Okay, so basically we use command line runner to run our logic at once while application startup. It has a run method, so we can go ahead and we can implement a run method. So this run method will run once while while executing our Spring Boot application. So before writing logic in a run method, we'll first inject employee repository, because we are going to use employee repository methods here, employee repository, and we are going to auto-hire it by using @auto-hire annotation. Perfect. Now here I am going to create few employees and insert in a database table. So it's employee, and let me call it as employee 1. Okay, and we are going to use a builder pattern, so employee dot builder, and then let's give first name as Ramesh and last name, let's say Fatare, and email ramesh@gmail.com. okay, and let's call build method. Okay, so this will build object, that is employee 1 object. Now let me simply copy this line of code, okay, and simply paste it here, and let's change the object from employee 1 to employee 2 and change the first name and last name and email accordingly. Let's say first name as Tony, last name as Stark, email as tony@gmail.com. okay, so this is the second. Now let me copy and paste here again, so that we'll create one more employee, employee 3, and let's say post name as John, last name Sina, email as sina@gmail.com. Now we have created 3 employees. Now we want to save these 3 employees, right? For that, what we'll do, we'll call employee repository and then call it save methods and just pass employee 1. okay, so similarly employee repository dot save and pass employee 2. okay, similarly employee repository and dot call save method and then pass employee 3. okay, perfect. So you can also call save all method, but you need to first create a list and then you need to pass. okay, so this is how we save the individual objects in a database by using save method. Alright guys, Now let's go and let's run our Spring Boot application and let us test the REST API that we have exposed. Okay, so here I'm going to run the Spring Boot application, run Spring Boot using main method. Alright guys, our Spring Boot application is up and running in embedded Tomcat server on port 8080. Now let's head over to the browser. In a browser, just type localhost 8080/API/employees, and there we go. We got a success response from the REST API. Alright guys, so REST API has returned a JSON to the client. It means that we have successfully built a REST API which returns the list of employee objects to the client. Now let's head over to VS Code IDE and let's open VS Code IDE some folder. For example, I have created a Vue JS folder in my file system and I have opened VS Code IDE within a Vue JS folder. Okay. Now let's go ahead and open new terminal and just type node --version. So make sure that you have installed Node.js. Okay, and in order to check Node.js version, you can just type node --version. Similarly, let's check npm version, npm --version, and there we go. So I have installed node and npm, so make sure that you have installed node and npm on your machine. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna install one very important extension in VS Code IDE. So go to the extensions menu and here just type vtur vetter. Okay, so go ahead and install this extension. So this is a very important extension guys. It will provide the syntax highlight and IntelliSense and snippets for Vue JS. So it is recommended by many developers specific to Vue JS. So go ahead and install this extension. Okay, so I have already installed it. So once you have installed this extension, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use Vue CLI to create a Vue application. So in order to create a Vue application using Vue CLI, first we need to install Vue CLI. So go to terminal again and just type the command sudo npm install -g at Vue CLI. So make sure that you provide sudo here because we need to provide permission to install Vue CLI. So I am using Mac operating system, so I can use sudo here, but if you are using Windows, then make sure that you open command prompt using administrator. Okay, so make sure that you open command prompt in administrator mode so that you won't get permission issue while installing Vue CLI. Okay, so go ahead and hit enter. So it will ask password. You can provide your machine password. So typically this will take couple of seconds to install Vue CLI. Let's wait couple of seconds. So look at here, Vue CLI successfully installed. Now let's go ahead and let's use Vue CLI tool to create a Vue application. So basically there are many ways to create a Vue application, but Vue CLI is official command line tool that we can use to quickly create a complete Vue application. Okay, so let me here clear the terminal, and here what we're going to do is we're going to use Vue CLI to create a Vue application. For that, let's type the command Vue followed by create followed by name of the project. So I am going to give project name as Vue frontend and hit enter. So it will say like please pick a present. So I'm going to pick up default, so just hit enter, and this will take a couple of seconds to create a complete Vue application. Okay, so let's wait a minute, and there we go. A Vue application is successfully created. You can see here within a Vue JS folder, you can see Vue frontend folder is created, and within this folder you can see bunch of files. Okay, so we have created a Vue application successfully. Now go to terminal again, and you can see here a couple of commands that we can use to run our Vue application. So go ahead and just type cd Vue frontend, hit enter. So now we are in a Vue frontend folder. Now we can use npm run followed by serve. So this is the command to run our Vue application. So basically it will run a Vue application in development server, which will run on port 8081. So typically by default the port is 8080, but our Spring Boot application is running on a default embedded Tomcat server on port 8080. That's why Vue.js will pick up a port 8081. Okay, so now head over to the browser and just access our Vue application using this URL. So go to the browser, in new tab just type localhost 8080 8081. Okay, hit enter, and there we go. You can see here, welcome to your Vue.js application. It means that we have successfully created our Vue.js application. Okay, great. Now let's understand the important files and folders within a Vue application. So you can see here package.json file. So package.json file is very important, guys. It contains all the dependencies and the scripts. For example, you can see here this is the name of the project and version, and you can see scripts. So here you can see serve. Okay, so this is the script to run a Vue application, and this is the script to build the Vue application, and these are some linked scripts. And you can see here the dependency core.js. So you can see here Vue.js 3 plus. So we are using latest version of Vue.js. Okay, and if you can see here dev dependencies. Alright, and these are browser specific settings. Okay, so basically package.json contains the dependencies and its versions and link to scripts. Okay, this is the script to run the Vue application, this is the script to build the Vue application. Okay, and these are the dependencies. Now if you can go here, node_modules folder. So node_modules folder basically it gets generated whenever we create a Vue application, or whenever we enter the command npm install. Okay, so this node_modules folder will be created, and all the JavaScript that we install, that being installed in this folder. Okay, so all the packages and JavaScript libraries will get installed within this node_modules folder. And you can see here public folder, so it contains assets, and you can see here it contains right now 2 files, favicon, so it is not specific to Vue application, and we have another file index.html. so this is a very important file, guys. So as we know that we are developing a single page application, so in Vue application we should have only one HTML, that is index.html file. Alright, and if you see here within a body we have a div with id app. Okay, so all the components will be dynamically get rendered within this div, because this is single page application, so we should have only one HTML file, and this HTML file will get served and get dynamically updated by Vue. Okay, so we typically don't change this file. Sometimes we may change header, like we can add a scripts a link to the external JavaScript files or CSS files, but we don't typically change the body section of this file. All right, now src folder. Well, whatever the development we do, that will be goes inside src folder. For example, we create a components, right? So within src folder we have a components folder, and whatever the component that we create, we keep those components within a components folder. Okay, so here main.js. So this is a very important file, guys, and this is the entry point of our Vue application, and it contains object of Vue. Okay, and this object internally called the render method, and this render method renders app component. App component is root component, and you can see here this app component will be mounted within a DOM element app. Okay, so this app we have just seen, right? If we can recollect from index.html, here we have a div with id app, so this id being used over here. Okay, so basically app component will be rendered within a div with id app. All right, now go to app.vue. so if you can see here, app.vue contains three things. Okay, three sections, that is template, script and style. So typically in all Vue component we can see three things. Okay, template, script and style. So template basically contains HTML template and Vue JS specific directives, and script contains JavaScript code, and style section contains CSS style stuff. Okay, great. So app component is basically a root component. All right, now if you can go inside components folder, you can see hello world.vue. So whenever we create a Vue application using Vue CLI, hello world Vue component by default will be created, and this Vue hello world component will be called in app component. Okay, so if you can see here, within a components, hello world component will be imported, and this app component will be rendered in main.js. Okay, so this is the application flow. So main.js file will get served in a browser, and then it will call app component, and within app component we have imported hello world, and then hello world component will be rendered in a div. All right, so this is a typical flow and the important folders and files in our Vue application. Great. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna install Bootstrap CSS library. Well, Bootstrap CSS framework is very popular CSS framework for developing responsive websites and responsive web applications. Okay, now let's go and let's install Bootstrap CSS library. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna open a new terminal over here and just type the command npm install bootstrap -- save. So before that, we need to move to our project folder. So just type cd vue -frontend. So make sure that you are in a Vue frontend folder. Now we can type the command npm install bootstrap -save to install Bootstrap in our project. And there we go. So look at here, Bootstrap 5 requires this dependency. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll install proper.js/core dependency. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and here just type npm install. So paste this dependency, that is proper.js core, and after that just say --save. This will save our library in a local file system. And there we go, we have successfully installed Bootstrap. So in order to make sure that whether the Bootstrap is installed or not, we can go within a node_modules folder, and you can see here Bootstrap folder should be created. So let me check. Yeah, there we go, a Bootstrap folder is created. Within a Bootstrap folder you can see dist, and then CSS folder. Within a CSS folder you can see bunch of bootstrap related CSS files, and we are going to use bootstrap main.cs file. Okay, now we are going to import this path in our main.js file. Okay, so go to main.js file, and here just type import bootstrap and then dist and then CSS and then bootstrap dot min dot CSS. Okay, that's it. We have successfully installed bootstrap and we have imported bootstrap in our main.js file. Now we are good to use bootstrap library CSS classes. Okay, just save the file. Now we are going to use Axio's HTTP library to make a AJAX call or REST API call from the Vue application. For that we are going to add Axio's library to our project. So in order to do that, go to terminal again and just type the command npm add Axios. Okay, hit enter. So this will add Axio's library to our project, and there we go. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to create one folder within src folder. So go to src folder and then here create a new folder. Let's call it as services. Okay, so within a services we are going to create a file. Let's call it as employee service.js, and within this file we are going to import Axios from Axios. Okay, now let's define one constant over here. So we store a REST API URL in some constant. So let's say const and constant name, let's say employee underscore API base URL, something like that. Okay, and here I'm going to define the value, that is http localhost 8080/API/employees. Okay, so this is the REST endpoint URL. Alright, that we are going to consume in our Vue application. Now let's create a class. Let's say employee service. Okay, so within this class we are going to create a method. Let's say employees, get employees. Okay, and this method should return response of the get REST API. That is, we are going to use Axios here, and we are going to use get HTTP method. It takes a URL. Let's pass employee API base URL. Okay, very simple guys. So this method returns the response of the REST API, and here we are calling get method, which internally makes call to the HTTP get request, and this is the REST API URL. Now let's export object of this class so that component will use object of this class. All right, so let's say export default new employee service. So make sure that you should export the object of employee class by using new keyword here. All right, so that's it. Just save it. Now let's go ahead and let's create a component. So go to components folder. Within a components folder we're going to create a component called employee. So just type employee dot view. So make sure that you provide dot view as extension. Okay, now within a view component we can define three things like template, style, and script. All right, so let's say template. Within a template we write all our HTML code, and we have a script. Okay, so within a script we write all the JavaScript code, and we define basically the component, that is view component. So I'm going to remove this code right now. Okay, so we can also define the style section here. So if you have any CSS code, then you can go ahead and you can write CSS code within a style section. Okay, so for time being I don't have any CSS code. I'm going to use Bootstrap CSS classes, so I will remove style here. If you have any custom CSS, then you can write within style tag for this specific component. Okay, so now within a template we are going to write HTML code to display a list of employees. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create here one div with a CSS class, let's say container. So within a div I'm going to create one header with h1 tag. Okay, and let's add a CSS class here, let's say text center, and the heading should be something like employees list. Alright, now I'm going to create one table, HTML table. Okay, and let's give CSS class for this table, something like table, and then table stripped, and then here we are going to define the header for table header. Okay, just close table header over here, and within a table header we are going to create a columns, right? th, let's give employee ID, something like this, and similarly let me quickly copy this and paste 3 times. This is the employee first name, and this is the employee last name, and this is the employee email. Okay, now we have defined header for our table. Let's go ahead and let's define table body. Within table body we're going to create a row tr. Perfect. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a view directive, that is v-for, to iterate over a list of employees. Okay, just type v-for. So this is the view directive that we can use to iterate over a list of elements. Okay, so we are going to iterate over a list of employees. So let's go ahead and let's define the variable employee in employees. Okay, so this employees is the JavaScript object that we define a bit later, and we should provide a unique key for this row. For that we are going to use one more directive, that is v-bind followed by colon and then key, and here we are going to use employee.id. Okay, perfect. Now within a row table data. Okay, now we can use double curly braces here to access the object property. Okay, employee.id. Okay, so just remember in Vue JS we use double curly braces to access the JavaScript variable like this. Okay, so I'm going to just copy this and paste it here 3 times. Okay, and this is employee first name, and this is employee last name, and this is email. Okay, perfect. So what we have done, we have used v-for. This is the view directive to iterate over a list of elements. So here we are going to iterate over a list of employees, and this is the directive to provide a unique key for the element, and here we are using double curly braces to just display a JavaScript variable here. Okay, now we have written all the HTML code within a template to display list of employees. So go to script tag. So within a script we are going to create component. So let's say export default, and here we use name to define the component name here, and then here we use data to supply data. Okay, let's say initially we have employees with an empty array, and then we have a methods section. Okay, so in this section we can define the methods, and then we have a lifecycle method called created. Okay, so notice here name for the component we are going to give employees, and this data contains here we defined employees array. Initially it is empty, and within the methods we are going to define the method. Let's say get employees. Okay, and here we are going to call employee service, and make sure that you import employee service here. Import employee service from services employee service. Okay, now we can use employee service object and its method, that is get employees, and then we call then method. Okay, so we have a response object. So within the then method we will get a response object, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get a data from the response, and we assign that response data to the employees array, this dot employees, and then response dot data. Now we are going to call this get employees method from the lifecycle method, that is created. So created is basically a lifecycle method, and within this method we are going to call get employees. Okay, so whenever this component will get mounted, created lifecycle method will be get called, and within a created lifecycle method we are going to call get employees. So get employees method will basically call get employees of employee service object and returns a response of the REST API, and that response of the REST API will be stored in employees array, and this employees array will be used here. Okay, and we have used v-for directive to iterate over a list of employees or array of employees, and we have displayed each employee over here. It's pretty simple logic, guys. Okay, so we define a Vue component, we give name, and we collect data, and we define methods section, and whatever the methods we create, we should create within a methods section here, and created is a lifecycle method which will get called whenever this component will get mounted, and we call get employees method within this created lifecycle method, and get employees method will basically make a call to get employees method and get the response of the REST API. Okay, pretty simple, guys. Now we have completed employee Vue component. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to use this employee Vue component in our app root component. So go to app.vue, and here you can see we have already a hello world component, so we are going to remove this hello world now, and here I'm going to remove hello, and we are going to use the employee component here, and here we need to import the employee component, employee from dot slash component folder, and we have employee dot view. Okay, so we have imported Vue component within app component, but we haven't used it. So here we're gonna use, okay, just remove it, and also remove this image, and here we're going to call employee. Okay, that's it, and save the file, and let's see how it works. And you can see here we are getting an error. it says employee is not defined. So go to our component, employee component, and here you can see employees. So here we basically need to write something like this, return, and within a return method we need to return this employee array. Okay, and this should be colon. So make sure that you follow this syntax and just save the file, and there we go, there are no compilation error. Now let's head over to the browser, and in a browser you can see, we can see here a employees list table. Okay, but data is not yet populated, so let me inspect and let me see what is the error. Go to console and you can see here we got a course policy issue. So we typically get this issue because our Spring Boot application is up and running on port 8080 and our Vue JS application is running on port 8081. Okay, so both the applications are running on different port, so browser typically gives this error. So in order to resolve this error, what we're going to do is we're going to simply change or simply add course origin annotation in our Spring Boot application. So head over to IntelliJ IDEA and go to employee controller, and here just call cross origin annotation. Okay, and here we provide the URL of the client, that is Vue application URL here. So go to browser again and just copy this URL and just paste it here. Now employee controller will allow this client application to access the REST API. So go ahead and save the file and let's restart our Spring Boot application. If you can see here, our Spring Boot application is up and running on port 8080. Now let's head over to the browser and let's just refresh. And there we go. Alright, we have successfully get a data on a web page. It means that we have successfully integrated our Vue application with Spring Boot application. Okay, now we can see here these are the 3 employees that we have that we have stored in a database. For example, in our Spring Boot application you can see we have inserted these employees, right? Ramesh, Tony and John. So these are the employees we are populating on the web page. It means that our Vue application successfully called a REST API and get the response and populated on the web page. Alright guys, in this tutorial we have learned how to develop a simple full stack application using Vue JS as a front end and Spring Boot as a backend, and we have seen how to integrate a Vue application with Spring Boot application using Axio's HTTP library. Alright, so let me know if you have any question in the comment section, and if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching guys. I will see you in the next video.